Hello and welcome back to my video series on using the Roland JUNO-DS in a live band setting. Last time we explored the patch, split, dual, super layer, and performance modes and how to navigate them. In this video, I'll cover some important aspects of creating your own performance settings by walking through an example of how I would prepare. Before we dive in, I want to say that if you haven't had previous experience using a synthesizer or a DAW for music production, assembling a performance setting from scratch with multiple parts and using that for a song can be quite difficult to do. It takes practice. But anyway, let's get started. As in the last video, we get to the performance mode by pressing this patch/perform button. Then we highlight the preset number, we're already there, and press enter. And use the right arrow key to get over to the user tab. Then to create our own performance setting, we scroll down and find the first value that still says init perform. That means that we haven't saved anything there yet and everything's set to the default value. So press enter. Now we're ready to start creating. I will show you some of the most common settings that I use by creating a performance setting for the song By the Cross by Red Rocks Worship in the key of E flat. The song starts with a piano riff, so we need to select an appropriate piano sound. To do that, let's get down to the patch number and press enter. And then this 88 stage grand sound is good for most uses, but I like the Juno Piano 2 for this song in particular, because it has a wider range of frequencies that will cut through the mix better. Okay, the second sound that we want to add is a pad. I use some sort of synth pad or strings pad for almost every worship song I play because in the genre of worship music, empty space in the mix is seldom a good thing. A pad will create a nice foundation for all of the other instruments and fill in the gaps. Right now the display says part 1 above the patch number, so we need to get to layer 2 by pressing this number 2 on the phrase pad. Anytime you're in performance mode, you can use these numbers to get to the different layers. So you have numbers 1 through 8 here, and then you can hold shift to get to numbers 9 through 16. So let's keep the synth pad on layer 2 for now. I'm going to select a synth pad for this under the vocal/pad category. Okay, so we've settled on this pop pad sound after trying several different sounds. For layer 3, I want to put in a little bit of strings because I definitely hear some strings in the original recording. So let's go to part 3 and go to the patch number and select the orchestra category. I've selected this pop strings 1 sound. Now we've selected the patches for our first 3 layers, but we can only play them one at a time. That's because we haven't activated them in the key bed yet. To do that, press Menu, Edit, Performance Edit, and that takes you to the list of all the patches that you're using for your 16 layers. And in this keyboard column, we use the plus or minus keys to turn that on, or the scroll wheel to do the same thing. Now we have all 3 layers on and we can hear them at the same time. Now, typically, you don't want the pad to be active in the region of the keyboard that you'll be playing a moving part, because that sounds really muddy. So we want to limit the pad and strings to just the left hand. To do that, we move to the tab called Keyboard, and we can adjust the values in the range low and range up columns. Since the lowest note that I play in this intro riff is E flat 3, we need to change the upper limit of the pad and strings to D3. So let's change those values. Okay, I've changed the values to D3 for both layers 2 and 3. Now that riff is much clearer. However, there are a few things that we could improve. Since the piano part is the most important in this section, let's boost the volume level of layer 1. To do that, hold Shift and go to the Level/Channel tab. We can adjust the level of layer 1, increase that Let's go to 127, which is the max value. And then also the strings pad I feel is a little bit overpowering, so we can pull that down to 85. Next, the synth pad has much too long of a release time, so we can adjust that too. Let's go to the offset tab. It's called the offset tab because these same parameters are found in the programmed patch, but we're not changing the patch itself, we're just offsetting those parameters from their original values. So we can add a negative value to layer 2 on the release column. About negative 15 will work. Each patch is different, so you'll just have to play around with the values until it sounds right. Now that cuts off in a reasonable amount of time. Finally, it is good practice to spread out your sounds over multiple octave ranges so that there's never too much of one frequency. I think we can bump up the synth pad by an octave so that it separates it from the strings. To do that, hold Shift again and go to the Pitch tab. And under Octave, we can put a +1 under Layer 2. While we're here, I'll show you that you can use this cross column to transpose the sound by semitones. And then you can also use this fine column to change it by cents, or less than a semitone. Okay, we've already changed a lot within this performance setting, so it is time to save. It's very easy to lose your progress, so make sure to save often. Press Right, Performance Right, and then we have to change the name so that we remember what it is. Okay, I finished changing the name, and I like to keep the key of the song in the title. So you press Enter, and then select the place that you want to store it. And press OK. Now I've stored our performance setting in user 12 with an appropriate name. To see what I do for the rest of the song, you'll have to watch the next video. I saved the entire upper range of the keyboard for a reason, so see you then.
Jesus died.